During a flight, a white woman with racist attitudes throws insults against a black soldier, hardly knowing that she is about to make a mistake that will reverberate further than she thinks. The next day, when she comes across television news, the truth comes out, and there is how she never imagined. Samantha Pierce, an executive in her early 30s, exuded confidence and sophistication. Its costume, an impeccable grey blazer combined with an adjusted pencil skirt, reflected its meticulous and high-standard personality. Her perfectly arranged blonde hair was trapped with a silver barrette that seemed as elegant as it was discreet, giving her an air of subtle but undeniable authority. Black high-heeled, shiny leather pumps rhythmically hit the floor as she walked with determined steps, as if each movement was part of a carefully rehearsed choreography. The sound of his jumps mingled with the buzz of the train station, but it seemed immune to the surrounding agitation, focused only on the future. His face, despite the classic beauty, brought the expression of those who were used to finding quick solutions and expecting immediate results, a silent frustration marking each line of his countenance. She was on her way to a highly expected management conference, where she intended not only to impress, but also to pave the way for a promotion that would put her at an even higher level. Samantha's ambition was as sharp as the jumps of her bombs, and she knew that every word, every gesture, every attitude in that event would need to be perfectly calculated to ensure what she wanted: recognition, power, and above all, validation of your hard effort. The waiting area at Los Angeles International Airport was in full effervescence. It was a dark and stormy morning of November, and the heavy climate outside seemed to reflect the restlessness of the travelers. The fluorescent lights flashed intermittently over the crowd, and the continuous sound of itinerant announcements cut the constant buzz of voices. Please check your departure gate. Make sure your belongings are safe. Pay attention to time changes, were the repeated messages, aired as an attempt to tame the disorder. The room was full of a diversity of people, each with its own history and destiny. Families with young children, whose laughter and cries were competing for their attention, walked quickly carrying baby strollers. Business professionals with tired glances and formal clothes moved on the screens of their cell phones, impatient and anxious, and students with sloppy backpacks and headphones exchanged jokes and looked around with a kind of youth care. The G12 gate, which was designed to be the scenario of rapid and efficient matches, was now a point of collective frustration. The flight to Atlanta, which should initially leave at 9 a.m., had been postponed due to the imminent storm, which generated a growing murmur of dissatisfaction between the passengers. Many were already looking at the clock, impatient with the backwardness that seemed endless, while others began to look for seats, trying to settle through the growing discomfort. The anxiety in the air was palpable, a tense energy that didn't seem to dissipate anytime soon. While roaming emails on her smartphone, each message seemed more urgent than the previous one, with colleagues expecting her to deliver flawless budgets and presentations. Samantha tried in vain to contain the impatience that was beginning to emerge. The fluorescent lights of the waiting room had mingled with the feeling of discomfort that accompanied it. Finally, the shrill sound of the speaker announced that first-class passengers could board. She deeply exhaled, feeling immediate relief, as if chaos were left behind with the terminal doors. Holding her designer bag, which shone in the light with her refined leather material, she quickly walked to the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the first-class cabin was an isolated refuge, almost like a luxury capsule, with more spaced benches and champagne flutes already arranged at the tables. Samantha headed straight to the second seat, keeping his purse in the upper compartment, and made a point of settling as soon as possible. A sense of momentary superiority took over her body as she prepared to completely ignore the rest of the world. She looked again at the phone screen, checking the urgent messages that had arrived. Each of them seemed to demand their immediate attention, and she grunted softly as she slid her finger to delete some. It was then that he noticed the approach of a high-shoulder black man wearing an impeccable army uniform. He stopped in front of the cabin and started checking the seat numbers. The name patch on his chest read Jamal Lewis. With a contained courtesy, he nodded toward Samantha before pointing to the seat beside her. 2B. His green eyes shone with a slight annoyance. She recognized the gesture, forcing a tense smile as thoughts whispered in her mind. I would like to know if he is here with a discount or benefit. I paid the highest price for my place. Is he not even paying full fare? A remnant of prejudice went through her mind, tightened as she settled in her seat with a heavy sigh, adjusting her seatbelt. His posture clearly said that he was not at all interested in starting a friendly conversation. Jamal, with a remarkable calm, sat in his place and, for a moment, offered an educated nod towards Samantha. But she was already facing the window, closing in the world around her. The flight attendants began to pass through the corridors, offering a variety of pre-parted drinks, gas water, orange juice, or a mimosa. The flight had not yet taken off, but the tension in the air seemed to increase as time passed. When an attendant noticed Jamal's uniform, he paused his way, looking straight at him with a genuine smile. "Thanks for your service, Sergeant," he said, with a reverence in his voice. "Please let me know if you need something." Samantha could almost feel the frustration boiling inside her. Of course, it thought bitterly, the extra advantages for the military. Everyone stumbled to show gratitude, to be polite. Her lips squeezed into a thin line, and she took the phone again, pretending to be busy. She never considered herself openly racist. In fact, she liked to brag about her friends that she was colorblind, a joke she used to justify her opening to people of all origins. However, at times, when her own privilege or sense of law was challenged, she could not avoid the feelings that sprouted unintentionally. She felt a silent irritation, a resistance hidden to people who, in her vision, did not belong to her level. She knew it was a wrong thought, but he still arose, there, deep in her mind. Soon, with first-class passengers finally accommodated, the cabin doors were closed, and the plane began to move around the corridor. Jamal discreetly removed a small photograph of his jacket's inner pocket. He looked quickly to the image before storing it again, the expression on the hard face than anyone could imagine. Samantha could not avoid throwing a stealthy look at the photo Jamal held. It was an image of a child with a radiant smile, perhaps about 8 or 9 years, wearing a bright headwear and holding a soccer ball. Something in it seemed so genuine, so simple. But instead of letting herself play for it, she tried to maintain her stance of indifference, her still, impersonal tone. "What a lovely child. Your daughter?" Samantha's voice came out sharper than she would like an innocent observation, but with a tip of something else, something she didn't know exactly what it was. Jamal raised his eyes to her, surprised for a moment, before relaxing the expression and responding, with a discreet smile that briefly illuminated his face. "Yes, ma'am. This is my daughter, Amara." Samantha had to hold on so as not to turn his eyes on formality. She was used to being treated with unrestricted deference, and Jamal's answer, though polite, had something that made her feel out of place. It was as if he were out of his reach, oblivious to his expectations that everything would fit according to his own world. She murmured, trying to disguise the frustration that was beginning to bubble. "She must be proud of having such a distinct," he added, trying to cover up the unkindness with a more ambiguous comment. "Actually, I'm going to Atlanta to see her," said Jamal, with a calm that Samantha couldn't ignore. He didn't feel obliged to give more explanations, which made her feel even more uncomfortable. It was something from another world, Samantha thought. Someone so quiet, so safe. She didn't know if she should be impressed or annoyed. The need to provoke once again took it. "It must be good, having the airlines treating you with so much respect," she said, with a slightly ironic smile, looking at his seat. "It's in the first class, right?" Jamal did not falter. "I paid for this seat," he said, the quick answer and without any apology. "I'm not after favors or any of this. If you are insinuating something," he added, his voice firm, but without losing his politeness. But for Samantha, those words came as a silent challenge to their pride. It was something she didn't expect to hear, especially from someone like him. She forced a smile and turned to the window, placing the headphones, trying to mentally move away from the conversation. But inside, irritation still eroded. The discomfort was so strong that she felt as if she had swallowed something bitter she couldn't expel. As the plane was preparing to take off, the attendants began to serve lunch. The menu offered salmon or pasta, and Samantha made her request from Chardonnay, as if the wine could soften the frustration that still squeezed her inside. She discreetly looked at Jamal, noting that he politely refused the wine offered to him. When an attendant paused and thanked him for the service provided, Samantha realized that her patience was running out. It was as if Jamal were constantly placed in a pedestal that she found unjustified. Unable to control herself longer, she leaned a little to him, letting her voice overflow with sharp sarcasm. "Do you never get tired of being flattered just because we wear a uniform." She felt the words get out of her mouth before she could ponder them. The most hostile tone than she intended, but there was. Jamal turned, the calm look, but now with a tension in the air. "Thank you, but I'm not asking for this kind of treatment." Samantha, unable to hide her indignation, countered, "Oh yes? Because it seems that everyone makes a point of reminding you all the time of how grateful they are. And the rest of us, we're here, sweating, and we don't get a little bit of this recognition." Her voice came out harsher than she wanted, as if the accumulated frustration had finally found an exhaust valve. Jamal put the fork gently on the plate, his controlled expression, but there was something in his gaze that suggested a deep pain she didn't understand. "Madam, if that bothers you so much, I can pay for my own meal. It's no big deal." His voice was serene, but there was a weight in the words that Samantha could not ignore. She felt stupid to have touched the wound, to make the conversation more about her than what really mattered. She shrugged, trying to mask her vulnerability. "This is not the meal. This is the beginning," she said, the words coming out of her mouth as if they were long trapped in their throat. Something about her, perhaps a fear she had never faced, prevented her from pretending that everything was fine. Jamal looked away, a glow of sadness crossing his face, but he did not increase the tension. Instead, he took a deep breath and explained with an impressive calm, "I'm going to Atlanta because my daughter has a medical problem. I just want to be there for her." Samantha, for a moment, was paralyzed, the impact of the truth beating her unexpectedly. She felt the weight of words, but in an effort to protect herself, she tried to push any feeling that arose. "Well, good for you," she murmured, trying to divert attention from her own discomfort. "Maybe another story about medical accounts or something," she thought, trying to convince herself that it didn't affect her. The silence spread between them. As she looked at the picture again, seeing Amara's sincere smile, something inside Samantha shifted, but she couldn't handle it. She had seen Jamal's look, and now I saw her own inability to understand. The discomfort would not leave, and she didn't know how to deal with the feeling that something was wrong, something she had never really faced before. Samantha felt for a brief moment something that resembled guilt, but soon it pushed the thought away. "I'm just being realistic," she convinced herself, trying to bury any trace of empathy. "Not everyone who wears a uniform is a saint." When the plane landed at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, a collective sigh traveled the cabin. The relief was immediate, but Samantha could not afford to relax. She was already mentally focused on the conference that awaited her. "I have an agenda to fulfill," he thought, leaving the feeling of discomfort aside. At the terminal, between the passenger chaos gathering and tourists admiring the signs of the airport, Samantha headed towards the withdrawal of luggage, ignoring the urgent text of his colleague. The last thing she wanted was to be followed by the shadow of her conscience. When he took his silver suitcase, he spotted Jamal on the other side, still on the phone. Something in her tense posture caused her a tightness in her chest, but she walked away quickly, trying not to think about what she had just seen. When it got into the car, the rain hit the glass, and Atlanta's traffic was chaotic. She was trying to focus on tomorrow's presentation, but the brief interaction with Jamal and her daughter Amara began to hammer into her mind. "It's not my problem," it repeated to itself. "Life is difficult for everyone." The next morning, the conference was in full swing. Samantha circulated between the stands, squeezing hands and receiving praise for their impeccable presentation. He felt at the top of the world, as always, but when checking messages on his cell phone, a notification caught his attention. "Daughter of local sergeant fights for his life. Community asks for help." It was the photo of Amara, connected to pipes in a pediatric ICU. Samantha froze to see the image. The article detailed Jamal's struggle to get care for his daughter, diagnosed with a cardiac defect. The shame invaded her, but she soon pushed her away. "I have more to do," thought, closing the phone. The event continued, and she couldn't allow herself to lose her focus. The caption made her stop. "Amara Lewis, 9, is awaiting specialized surgery not fully covered by standard military insurance." Words as an experimental procedure and insurance gaps caught their attention, and before it could contain themselves, Samantha found himself reading each word with more interest. The article detailed as Jamal, a newly released to the US on emergency license, was trying to ensure the treatment of his daughter, Amara. The girl's condition, diagnosed with a severe cardiac defect, had worsened to the point of demanding a delicate and expensive intervention. Not covered by insurance, assurance, Jamal had resorted to an online background collection campaign. Samantha's chest squeezed. She remembered the harsh words she had told him on the plane, accusing him of receiving special treatment, and the weight of shame began to take care. She imagined Amara's face again, the bright eyes of the photo, now replaced by a child's distressing image in a ICU. Jamal wasn't trying to draw attention. He was not pretending. He was fighting for his daughter's life. Samantha felt swallowed by guilt, but quickly pushed that feeling away. This is not relevant to my life, she tried to convince herself, but the feeling of discomfort didn't leave her alone. The night was advanced, and the conference cocktail was at the height. Executives with champagne flutes in hand exchanged stories about mergers and profit projections. Samantha was present, with her unbeatable smile and elegant black dress, but something was out of place. With each attempt to get involved in business conversations, his mind diverted to Amara, and the girl's face did not come out of her head. Samantha took a sip of the drink and forced a smile, but the guilt remained like a cloud that dragged on. Finally, she walked away, looking for a quiet corner of the room. The look through the window revealed Atlanta's sparkling lights, but they seemed distant without the usual fascination. His thoughts went back to the news, and almost without thinking, he took the phone again. He reopened the article and clicked on the link to the Jamal background collection page. The goal was $150,000, but so far there were only $37 complete. The page was full of messages, many expressing support and prayers for Amara's recovery. Samantha looked at the numbers. The weight of choice was beginning to form on his chest. Although she had the resources to help, she had never been inclined to donate large amounts to such causes. She had always believed that everyone should achieve what she has, as she had done. But when looking at the updates and words of support, she found herself thinking of those who were willing to help, not out of interest, but because they really cared. Something inside Samantha moved, but the tension between her worldview and the reality in front of her prevented her from acting. Samantha felt a knot squeeze on her stomach as she looked at the phone's screen, Jamal's words echoing in her mind. Amara's surgery was more expensive than she imagined, with military insurance covering only one fraction. The back collection page was full of support messages, but also of a hard and palpable reality. Each donation seemed to be an attempt to notice something much bigger, something she herself, unintentionally, had destroyed. She hesitated, her mind spinning between pride and the need to do something that until then seemed unthinkable. With a trembling hand, she typed a value, her heart beating faster with each key pressed. $10,000. The number blinked on the screen. A sigh of resignation came out of his lips. Am I really doing this, she wondered. That value seemed so far from his world. However, what bothered her most was not the money, but the weight of the words she had launched on the plane and how it had removed her from something genuine. With one click, the donation was confirmed. The screen showed the message of thanks. Samantha stood there, staring at the name that appeared, Samantha Pierce. She felt a shiver. Would Jamal see that, make the connection? She almost wanted to have been anonymous, but regret already consumed her. He put the phone aside, but the feeling that what he had done was just a small gesture in the face of something much bigger accompanied her the rest of the night. The next day she woke up with a heavy heart, unable to ward off the rise that dominated her. With the conference and the performances ahead, the pressure in her work made her get lost. But there was something more, something that didn't leave her alone. Early in the morning, she wrote a quick message to the team saying she needed time. Then he made an impulsive decision. Not saying anything else for anyone, he rented a car and headed for Peachtree's Children's Hospital. The hospital, with its colorful murals and vibrant corridors, was full of life, but Samantha felt as if it had been transported to another world. The smell of antiseptic and the sound of the machines were almost a contrast to the lightness of the environment. She climbed to the third floor, where the pediatric ICU was located, and was guided to the reception, where she was questioned if she was part of the family. An embarrassment took over her, but she remained firm. "I'm a friend," he said, almost not believing in his own words. The nurse, after a brief appointment, guided her to 4th 312. Samantha's heart beat hard as she walked down the decorated hallway with children's designs, trying to stay concentrated. When he arrived in the room, which he saw, it made it stop for a moment. Jamal was there beside Amara's bed, holding his hand with a delicacy that contrasted with the tension in his body. The girl was connected to several monitors, and the air seemed heavy from so much unintended suffering. Jamal was curved, as if the pain of the world was on his shoulders. Samantha, not knowing exactly what propelled her, knocked softly on the door. Jamal turned, his eyes fixed on her with a mixture of surprise and distrust. "Pierce, I didn't expect to see her here," he said, his voice loaded with a tiredness that Samantha had not noticed before. Samantha hesitated for a moment, the room closing behind her, with the stuffy sound of the heart monitor marking the rhythm of Amara's breath. The simple and cold room was filled with the aroma of antiseptic, the tinnitus of machines, and the soft murmurs of nurses passing quickly through the corridors. Samantha's heart squeezed to see the pale and silent girl, lying with wires connected to the fragile body. An oxygen tube serpented around his face, softly pressed against the nostrils, and Amara's chest climbed and descended with effort. She swallowed hard and in a choked voice said, "I read about you and your daughter in the news. Love, right?" Her words came out more nervous than she would like, and soon she felt ridiculous, considering the fragility of the situation. I'm sorry. I know this can be uncomfortable, but I wanted to see how you were." Jamal, who until then had his eyes focused on Amara, raised his head. The expression on his face was a mixture of surprise and something more, something harder to identify. The way his eyes softened when he saw her there revealed a rare vulnerability. He did not respond immediately, but his fingers caressed Amara's hand with unusual delicacy, as if the simple touch had the power to heal. "She's struggling. The surgery she needs. It's our only chance," he said, his voice hoarse as much effort to maintain the composure. Samantha stepped ahead, feeling the weight of every word not spoken. She didn't know what to do, but she felt the need to apologize for something she couldn't even understand. "I'm sorry," she said, her embargoed voice. The tears threatened to fall, but she contained herself. Amara, with effort, opened her eyes and fixed her eyes on her, and at that moment Samantha realized that the girl was more aware of what she looked like. "Hi, Amara," Samantha said with a shy smile. "I'm Samantha. I met your father on the plane a few days ago." Amara blinked slowly, trying to focus, her almost inaudible voice. "Do you travel a lot too?" Samantha forced a laugh, trying to disguise the tension in the chest. "Yes, but I'm here at a confront. But more importantly, I wanted to come to see you. Your father told me how brave you are." A small smile came on Amara's lips. "I try to, but sometimes I'm so tired." She looked at the monitors, her eyes getting lost in the flashing lights. "But I'll get better. I know I'll go." Those words, said with such sincerity, made Samantha feel tiny. She had come there with a rigid perspective, but now, hearing Amara's soft voice, she felt her own heart break into pieces. How could it have been so insensitive? How had it been so fast to judge? The little girl, even in her pain, carried a power inside her that Samantha had never imagined it was possible. She looked at Jamal, who was still next to her daughter, touching her forehead tenderly. When the girl fell asleep again, Jamal turned to Samantha, her gaze as serious as before. "I thank you for coming," he said, his voice soft but with a tone of confusion. "I still don't understand what has changed on you." Samantha hesitated, the weight of shame making her eyes down. "I saw the report," she started, the words coming out heavy as if they were torn hard. "And I realized that I was completely wrong. On the plane, I went cruel to you. I looked at you and did judgments without knowing your story, not knowing what you were going through. And when I read about yours, daughter, I realized I had no right to do that." Jamal watched her in silence, her expression not changing. But Samantha somehow felt that he was not condemning her. He was only allowing her to see her own flaws, without a hurry to forgive her, but giving her room to grow. She took a deep breath. I don't know how I can fix it," she continued, the pain in her now more evident voice, "but I needed to come here, see you both, and apologize." Jamal did not respond immediately, but when he finally spoke, his voice had unexpected softness. "You don't need an immediate forgiveness, Samantha. What you did was painful, but you came here, and that already means something." Samantha looked at the phone screen, feeling the weight of the message words. She was far from the event, ignoring the corporate world that had been her life for so long. But instead of regretting that he was moving away from his schedule, he felt a new purpose, something stronger than any professional commitment. She was willing to get lost a little on this new path. Somehow, helping Jamal and love to find a better future seemed more significant than any profit projection or performance reports. And with every phone call she made, every document she organized, her view of what really mattered became clearer. Amara's life was at risk, and she couldn't allow herself to be just a distant spectator. While walking to the parking lot after another meeting with doctors and experts, she saw Jamal leaning against the hospital entrance with an exhausted expression. But when he saw Samantha, his gaze softened. He looked more tired, but also more open, as if, despite the tensions, he had begun to accept her presence in his lives. "Are you well?" he asked, with a tone that suggested that he knew how much she was dedicated to it, despite everything she had done in the past. "Yes, all right," she replied, trying to disguise tiredness. "I think I found the surgeon who can help. He has experience with this kind of congenital defect, but he has a huge waiting list. I'll keep pressing, I promise." Jamal gave a tired but sincere smile. "Thank you. I know this is not easy. You're doing more than I expected." Samantha felt a slight pressure on her chest. His words were more than she deserved. He didn't know that in a way she had already forgiven herself, but not to forget what he had done, but to be able to move on with more empathy, more understanding. She was not trying to erase the past, but build something better in the present. In the following days, she immersed herself even more in the world of Amara and Jamal, helping with paperwork, seeking alternatives for treatment, and even connecting them with other experts who could accelerate the process. His professional life seemed increasingly distant, as if a parallel reality had formed around him, but somehow she didn't care. She and Jamal met several times during those days, always with the increasing pressure of ensuring that Amara had access to the best possible treatment. With each meeting, she noticed that the weight on Jamal's shoulders seemed to decrease, and he was starting to open a little more. Not only about Amara's health, but also about her life, her struggle, and what meant being a single father, always at the mercy of the difficulties of the health system and military life. I'm not good with that, you know," Jamal confessed one night, while both were sitting in the hospital lobby having a coffee. "With Amara at the hospital, what she needs, the only thing I can do is to be a soldier, and even in that, it's been hard." Samantha looked at him, listening to the words with a new respect. "You're doing what you can," she said firmly, "and that's all anyone can ask. But sometimes we don't have to carry the world alone." Jamal looked at her, her eyes finally reflecting something more than just exhaustion. It was a mixture of gratitude, relief, and perhaps a little hope. "I thought you were a difficult person," he admitted with a shy smile, "but maybe you have more to offer than I thought." Samantha smiled, although he said nothing. She felt that their relationship was starting to change slowly, but with the same determination she felt on her own journey. There was a cure happening there, but not just for Amara. Jamal and Samantha were also beginning to understand the value of forgiveness, and most importantly, the value of empathy. Finally, the long-awaited day has come. The specialized surgeon was available for Amara's surgery, and Samantha was there, alongside Jamal, eagerly waiting for the results. She had done her part, given what she could, and now all that was left was to wait. But while time passed, she knew that the real change was not in the operation itself. She had already transformed irreversibly. Samantha was next to Jamal during each stage, the days dragging on a repetition of tension and hope. Amara's recovery was not easy, and there were times when the girl seemed to lose her strength, and Jamal was on the verge of despair. But Samantha, with her constant presence and words of encouragement, was able to be the solid base he needed so much. During that time, she began to understand that it was not just about the donation of money, nor about the grand actions she could do. It was about being there, with an open heart, offering support. She saw herself worrying about Jamal and Amara in a way she had never imagined being possible. Her life before that was full of bright surfaces and empty moments where she sought to fill the void with more money, more recognition. But now she felt something deeper. "I felt that it had really made a difference, not just for Amara, but for herself. With each visit to the hospital, Amara became stronger, her colors returned to the face, and her smile gradually expanded. However, there were still moments of relapse. One afternoon, after a particularly painful physiotherapy, Amara was visibly slaughtered, her look lost in deep tiredness. Samantha sat next to her, holding her hand tenderly. "You're going very well," she said, with a soft, comforting voice. "I know it's sometimes difficult, but You're very brave. It's not alone." Amara looked at her with tired eyes, but with a glow of determination. "I know, and thanks for being here, Samantha. I know you have other things to do, but you always show up." Samantha smiled, feeling a mixture of pain and joy. "And I'll keep showing up," she assured, squeezing Amara's hand more firmly. "Always." As the days passed, Amara's recovery followed her course. Jamal was more relaxed, more confident. The smile he gave to Samantha was no longer only full of gratitude, but also of a genuine friendship that was beginning to form between them. The tension between them, who once dominated each conversation, was replaced by a silent confidence. He was still cautious, but the weight on his shoulders was slowly disappearing. On a particularly quiet night, while Amma had resting after another physical therapy session, Samantha and Jamal were in the hospital waiting room. The conversation flowed naturally, without haste, while the sound of the machines and the distant steps of the doctors filled the environment. "You know," Jamal started with a smile of corner of his mouth, "I didn't think someone like you care about us, Amara." Samantha laughed, feeling more comfortable with him than he had ever imagined. "I didn't think I would be able to care so much," she replied, her eyes fixed in the next window, where the city's lights shone in the distance. "But sometimes life teaches you things that you have never waited to learn." Jamal nodded, looking at her with a new understanding. It's not just trying to erase the guilt anymore. That's real." Samantha sighed, closing her eyes for a moment. "Yes, it's no longer a matter of trying to redeem me. It's about doing something that really matters. And love, you really showed me that." He looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "Well, I'll tell you something. When you started helping us, I didn't know what to expect. But now I see the difference. You went beyond what I imagined, and I'm grateful for that." Jamal's gratitude was one of the most powerful things Samantha ever felt. In the past, she would get used to measuring her value by numbers and professional victories. But now, his words meant more than any contract or prize she had already won. She had made a difference in a person's life, not out of self-interest, not for recognition, but simply because she believed it was right to do. Time passed, and Amara recovered completely. The child who was once on the brink of death now ran through the hospital corridors with a wide smile, bringing laughs and joy wherever it was. Jamal and Samantha continued their relationship with a new base of friendship and mutual respect. Samantha knew that life would never be the same anymore. She had gone from someone motivated only by power and personal success to someone who now understood the true meaning of contribution to support others. And that, she realized, it was the real reward. In the following months, she went on with her career, but now there was something new in her life. She sought success, yes, but also sought ways to contribute significantly. She no longer needed the approval of the corporate world to feel fulfilled. Your heart was lighter and your life more complete. Samantha continued to visit Amara regularly, bringing healthy snacks or fresh pajamas, always finding a time to sit next to the girl's bed and read sleeping stories while Jamal rested or checked the medical team. Amara, animated by the recovery, joked that Samantha was the coolest friend of all time. This simple compliment warmed Samantha's heart in a way that no corporate recognition had ever done. Amara's story gained media attention, and a brief interview with Samantha and Jamal was transmitted, highlighting the donation movement and the struggle for the protection of medical care. Although some tried to suggest a possible novel, the bond between them was deeper and genuine, built on mutual respect and real care. For Samantha, this experience was a significant turn, not only with regard to her relationship with Jamal, but also when facing rooted prejudices she had carried throughout her life. She began to seek counseling to deal with these prejudices, recognizing the subtle and racist influences with which she grew up in a whiter and more privileged environment. This introspection was uncomfortable but necessary. Samantha was determined to learn and unlearn, with the commitment to never inflict these damage to someone else. Meanwhile, Amara's health was stabilizing, and eventually a pediatric cardiologist stated that she was ready for the partial discharge. When Amara finally left the hospital, wearing new sneakers that illuminated with each step, the girl gave Samantha a sincere hug, thanking for the help. Samantha, with a choked voice, promised to continue visiting her, regardless of whether or not she is in the hospital. Jamal, thrilled, also expressed his gratitude to Samantha, saying he could never pay for everything she had done. She had gone beyond a simple donation. She was present, fighting beside him. Samantha smiled, knowing that her help had something much deeper than any material value. The following month brought a sense of renewal. Amara adjusted to a new drug regime and gradually enjoyed the simple moments of childhood again. Samantha remained present, often coordinating meals and shopping, or just appearing to talk. For her, the corporate world that once defined her identity began to seem less rewarding, and she realized that the real difference was being made in Amara's life. The experience also led Samantha to press through philanthropic initiatives in her company, an area she would never have considered before. Impressed with his new passion, the administration offered him a chance to lead a new corporate social responsibility program. This opportunity was a direct consequence of your personal transformation and experience with Jamal and Amara. About 3 months after Amara's surgery, Samantha was invited to a barbecue at Jamal's aunt's house. Jamal's family was mostly black, and Samantha, being the only white person present, initially felt out of place. However, throughout the night she no longer felt like a strange. She experienced genuine gratitude for the acceptance and welcome of the family. Amara played with her cousins, and Samantha watched with a sense of peace. Jamal was next to Amara, guiding her movements as she played foam soccer with others. The shared laugh at that moment filled the air with joy, and Samantha, absorbing the environment around him, reflected on how it had all started. She remembered the thoughtless words she had told Jamal on the plane, the hasty judgments she had done, and wondered how her life would have been different if she had not boarded on that flight. But when looking at the present moment, she realized that this meeting had been the point of turning, the opportunity to change, to learn to be a better person. She realized that over the months it wasn't just Amara who was healing, but she too. The experience with the girl, her journey to find a genuine connection with Jamal and his family, had rewritten something in essence. The change had not been immediate, but gradual, a subtle transformation that underwent their attitudes, their choices, and especially their view of what really matters. And that's when reflection has formed clearly in his mind. Life often gives us a purpose that we never ask, puts us in uncomfortable situations to force us to grow. Sometimes the true change begins when we are no longer defined by what we have or the image we project to the world, and we are shaped by the actions we take for others. If you liked this story, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Here you will find exciting stories every day, made to touch the heart, and I'm sure the story that is appearing on the screen now will thrill you too. Don't miss it.